Yo, what's poppin' YouTube? Welcome back to the channel. Zach Lesage here. Today we're going to be covering over the top 10 best decks in the Twilight Masquerade format. We just saw the early release for hobby stores yesterday, and now, of course, we have the set that's coming out later on this week, Friday, and it's going to be coming out this week on PTCG Live. I'm sure a lot of you are excited to dive into these new decks, including Dragapult, Blissey, maybe even Ogerpon. We'll have to see what are the top 10 best decks. In this video, I will be using my own personal opinion since we don't have too much tournament data to go off of, but this should help everyone prepare for NAIC. In the comments below, let me know what your top 10 best decks are, put your best guesses, and let me know exactly what's going on. Let's jump into number 10. Jumping into number 10, we have Blissey EX. I gotta start somewhere, and there might be a couple decks that I might have omitted from this list, but you wanna know what? I'm gonna go with the ones that I think might be pretty decently well positioned, and Blissey certainly has a great matchup into Dragapult and a handful of other matchups. The goal of this deck is to move energies from Blissey to Munkidori, or from Munkidori to Munkidori, taking damage counters that you have off your field to your opponent's Pokemon in any way you like. If our Blissey is threatened to get knocked out, we want to be able to lift up Blissey with Charon's Care, evolve into another Blissey, again, moving those energies around in any way that you'd like. We can always move energies to Hoopa or Mew EX or other attackers to really give this deck a disruptive and energy kind of feel to it. There's a lot of really cool plays that you can make with a deck like this, and I think with Dragapult being arguably the most popular deck, this deck has a placing in the top 10. It might be a low placing for now, but I think Blissey has what it takes to see some success. All these lists are available going to be in the pinned comments, so you can copy and paste those right into PTCG Live or any of the tabletop simulators that you've been playing with. If you need any of the cards, Kayfabe and PTCGL Store should have everything available for you once the sets are fully released. Jumping into our number 9 pick is our editor Dom's Raging Bolt Ogerpon EX deck list. Now, shout out Dom. It's one of those things where I was like, Dom, you're the Raging Bolt expert in the game, with back-to-back day 2s with the Lost Zone Raging Bolts, and really putting a lot of effort in Raging Bolt in general. Asked him for his opinion, he gave me the list. We're using Teal Mask Ogerpon to accelerate energies and draw cards, along with Sandy Shocks, of course, to blow up things with our Raging Bolt EX. We got a nice cornerstone mask Ogerpon that could be good against some using its ability to kind of block off some interesting Pokemon. Also, its attack being a fighting type attacker, just in case you run into anything like Future Hands or Miraidon. So overall, fantastic list. Give it a whirl if you're trying to play out Raging Bolt, but I think Teal Mask might take this deck to that next level that we were missing, because before we only had Sandy Shocks and we were able to only attach energies when we were behind. Now we have ways to really pick up the pace of play and take it to the next level. One thing that always worries me about a deck like this is you are very two prizer focused, but that's something that Roaring Moon EX also had going for it, or going against it, and Roaring Moon EX did quite well in the Paradox Rift format overall, so this might be the exact same case. Another newish deck, or a returning favorite, is going to be Turbo Iron Hands, with the new Iron Thorns EX, so being able to have a little bit of a disruptive play in this otherwise very aggressive deck, using Yuho's Stockholm list as a base, seems like a great way to just go after a lot of these single prize card focused decks in this format, and of course having some answers with Iron Hands EX against some Pokemon that have some larger HP. A lot of these Pokemon with larger HP got to start off somewhere and are a little bit slower, like Dragapult, so something like Iron Hands EX actually fits in really nicely here. And if the Iron Thorns EX can slow things down in other matchups, I kind of like the way that it plays out across the board. There's not really much to say about this other than just use Electric Generator, Miraidon. This might be a better way to be playing this deck than the other traditional Miraidon build that's seeing success in Japan, but we'll have to see how that plays out going forward into NAIC and online tournaments this week. Honestly, my gut tells me this one might be the place, which would free up a spot in the top 10. It's tough when there's multiple variations of decks, whether it's Dragapult or whether we're trying to add another deck into the top 10. There's only 10 spots. And again, when it comes to these early lists, a lot of it's just like based off of what I've seen in Japan, based off my own personal opinion on testing, or based off how I think the metagame might shape up. Anyways, let's jump into our number 7 pick. Blocking the way at number 7 is going to be Snorlax Control. Now, we might want to look at some newer builds like what we saw from Azul's Stockholm win. And this one might need to change a couple things up, but I do like the Giacomo with accompanying flute when it comes to this deck, especially as we see a lot of special energy seeing success in this format. Accompanying flute really gives us a lot of opportunities to potentially get more Pokemon into play. So if anything, the flute is really the big gain for Snorlax, and Snorlax otherwise is a low meta share deck, such as it always has been. Even though we just saw it win Stockholm, it's probably going to go peak up at LA, new format, drop off for NEIC. So if there's some decks that just don't have answers to Snorlax, you might be able to have some strong answers going to NEIC with a deck like this. Snorlax is really one of those could go the distance decks like we saw with Azul in Sweden. So will it continue to have that record? Will it continue to be that underrated deck, that under the radar play? We'll have to find out as we go forward. But right now, Snorlax builds are pretty traditional. If anything, lists are going to look very similar to this, or a mix between this and Azul's build from Stockholm. Warming up those electric generators at number 6 is going to be Turbo Miraidon. Now, somewhere in my heart, I'm not a Miraidon believer. I know some of y'all might be. That's just me. But I think that this deck is kind of like worse future hands, but its success in Japan is something that I cannot necessarily put down. So it's at number 6 based off placements, but I could see this deck kind of folding in the metagame because as players become more experienced with decks such as Dragapult EX, we might have some poor news for decks like this that are kind of aggressive. They don't typically hold up. Now, with Lugia spiking in this format and becoming one of the better decks in format, having a couple lightning type decks in the top 10 does make sense. So whether there's going to be lightning type techs in decks, maybe in a Lost Zone box deck or something of the sorts, or whether it's going to be pure lightning decks such as this or the future hands build, we'll have to find out. But we are through the halfway point. How is your list shaping up? Let me know in the comments below. While you're at it, give this video a like, share, subscribe to the channel, and let's see what we got going on at number 5. Jumping in to number 5 is going to be Lost Zone Box, and Lost Zone Box gains both Blood Moon, Ursaluna EX, and of course Monkey Dory. Having Darkness Energies, being able to move some damage counters from your Pokemon to your opponent's Pokemon in general can lead for some crazy plays on all of your attacking Pokemon, but especially Sableye to place those interesting damage counters. I've seen variations of this list, but majority of attackers are going to be quite fine. We don't really need to have Hoopa EX anymore with us having access to Blood Moon Ursaluna. That might change if we see things like Blissey coming out and seeing success, or if we see a lot more Miraidon being an issue. But right now, I think that Lost Zone Box kind of gained a little bit from the set, grabbing both Blood Moon and Monkey Dory, giving yourself some opportunities to make some really crazy plays. Are there any other attackers that you've thought about adding into this deck? I'm honestly unsure if there's anything that I would add from this new set, but if there's any ideas that you have, let me know in the comments below, because right now this is what most stock Lost Zone Box lists are looking like. Another Lost Zone Box deck back-to-back is going to be Lost Zone Tina. Now, Tina didn't really gain too much from the set. However, we did cut the Iron Lease as Charizard has gone down in play from being the most played deck in format down to going for the Blood Moon Ursaluna EX over that. So being able to recycle that with Super Rod, getting a couple attacks out of that per game, especially with Max Belt in the right matchup, certainly can be quite powerful. Build is looking as standard as ever, and it's just going to remain as consistent as ever. So in a world where Dragapult is going to get knocked out by Maximum Belts, that's what we got. So we can have a knockout on Charizard, Pidgeot, Dragapult, you name it. There's a lot of popular Pokemon in that 280 to 330 range. And on top of that, having that Blood Moon Ursaluna to hit out anything that's in the 220-ish range. So we no longer have to Lost Zone as many energies. This deck seems incredibly well positioned at number 4, and especially being a Dragon-type Pokemon that people aren't necessarily countering, Lost Tina might just be the sleeper pick. That's going to be my hot take for NEIC. I know I said Zard was falling off a little bit, but falling off from number 1, not that far. At number 3 is going to be Charizard EX. Now, Charizard EX, you might be looking for the cards that it's gained, and really the card that it gained the most is going to be Kieran. Kieran giving yourself a way to do extra damage. On top of having maximum belt to increase your damage even more, Charizard EX has more and more surprising plays. I have seen a couple Japanese lists that have also included Monkey Dory and Darkness Energy. Darkness Energy being searchable from Pidgeots, and being able to attach to the Monkey Dory, so you're able to move some damage counters from your Pokemon, kind of get that healing in quotation, and also damage buff in overall. When it comes to this deck, the other thing that you might notice in this deck and other lists is that we are going for the 70 HP Pokemon where possible, and going to the 60 HP Pokemon where possible, so that when they're moving damage counters around with the Dragapult EX, they're not necessarily ripping into your Pokemon as much as possible, giving yourself a chance there. So try to avoid those knockouts. If you haven't necessarily pulled out those Charmanders in a minute, and you're playing the Ember ones, you probably want to go back to our 70 HP ones going forward, just due to the popularity of Dragapult. We're about to enter into the top 2 best decks in format. I'm sure all of you have a lot of guesses when it comes down to it, but what are these top 2 decks going to have? Guess we'll find out. Let's jump into that number 2 pick. Here we have it, new Lugia. Now, Lugia has gained Legacy Energy, which has unlocked color attackers when it comes to this deck. So we have access to Iron Hands, Wellspring, and of course we have access to Lumineon V to potentially bump it back into the deck. We could reutilize that Legacy Energy either through Lumineon V, Wellspring's second attack, or we also have Roseanne's backup to get back other attackers or our Legacy Energy in general. This deck is a little bit less basic than what traditional Lugia has been for the past year or so, really giving this deck some legs to kind of work in the metagame. We still have Chinchino because it's one of the better attackers in format, and it's still a single prize card attacking Pokemon. This deck should have a decent matchup against Dragapult, Charizard, and most of the other decks on this list. You just really want to avoid the lightning type Pokemon. And there are quite a few lightning type Pokemon that are coming back just to beat this deck, so that should prove how powerful this deck is. New supporters such as Carmine also give you opportunities to have consistency on the turn 1, so you could actually play Lumineon, use Carmine, pitch your hand, draw 5, and put yourself in a fantastic position. That being said, Lugia looks like an incredibly well-positioned deck for NEIC. What's going to be our number 1 pick, though? We'll have to find out. Boom! Here you have it, the number 1 pick, Dragapult Xatu. Now, Dragapult has been a pretty well-refined deck for a minute now, and this is a list that I've been testing for a decent bit. I keep on going back and forth between Scoop Up Cyclone and Unfair Stamp. Right now, I like Scoop Up Cyclone because if your opponent's Pokemon are attacking into you, such as another Dragapult Mirror, you do have opportunities to take that damage off and really give yourself some new life. Also, it counts as a way to get some Pokemon like Rotom V and Lumineon out of play if you had to put those Pokemon down at any given point. There are a bunch of other Dragapult builds. I didn't necessarily know how to place them in this list, such as Dragapult Pidgeot, Lost Zone Dragapult, and Dragapult Charizard. I think this is really the deck that embodies Dragapult right now, and it's probably going to be the one that people play a little bit more. Feel free to test the other variants, and we might have already covered some of those on the channel, so check those out, and we might cover those in the channel going forward as well. But right now we have Dragapult EX, really with Xatu being our number 1 pick. Very consistent deck, very powerful deck. The real deal. Pick up some of these cards from Kayfabe if you're not at LA Regionals. Pick them up on their website or at LA Regionals. Fantastic deck across the board. Really the new big archetype out of Twilight Masquerade. Let me close things out. And that's what we got going on for our video today. We saw the top 10 best decks in our Twilight Masquerade format. The set is fully releasing this Friday. We already have the early release, so if you got your hobby stores, feel free to check them out, support them for some boxes and stuff like that. And of course, all of our sponsors are starting to release their stock of codes, cards, product, etc. So stay tuned for all of that. As for me, I'm preparing as much as possible. I already picked up some goodies from some of my local stores. You can see, picked up some cool cards. If I could possibly move my fingers around. So I'm excited to start building some decks. Well, those are really for the binder. started building a lot of decks. You can see I'm almost all done, so I could play test with my friends in Los Angeles, that format, and of course prepare for the last Temporal Forces event that I'm going to be playing in. I really hope that everyone enjoyed this video, and this video helps you prepare for NAIC. If you're ever looking for any help from me, I do offer some group coaching on Metafy, and of course one-on-one individual sessions. Check out my link in the description below for all of that great stuff. That being said, I'll catch up with all y'all later. Peace out and have a great one. Want to support the Shuffle Squad? Be sure to check out all of our sponsors in the description to pick up Pokemon TCG singles, sealed, and PTCG live codes. You made it to the end. Thank you so much for watching this entire video from the Shuffle Squad. Honestly, from the bottom of our hearts, we appreciate each and every person that supports our content, watches what we have going on every single day, every single week, even from time to time, and continuously allows us to have a forum to project our creative content towards the Pokemon TCG community. So if you haven't already, be sure to give this video a like, subscribe to the channel, and even leave a comment to help boost the YouTube algorithm. That being said, we'll catch you with our next video. Thanks again. Take it easy.